Olá, estamos de volta com o programa de internacionalização da UDC, recebendo sempre convidados muito importantes, referenciais no mundo inteiro. Hoje estamos recebendo, com toda a honra, com uma alegria muito grande, o professor PhD Sam Hunter Magee. Ele só trabalhou como docente na Boston University, na MIT, e agora ele é professor da Universidade de Harvard. Enfim, e ele veio para conversar com os alunos, ele palestrou aos alunos da UDC sobre startups. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome in Foz, in UDC,
Thank
in
you
Brazil.
very much. Yes, it's been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Então, startup. Para quem ainda não conhece, não sabe direito o conceito de startup, de forma bem didática, o que é startup e por que isso está em ebulição no mundo?
So, in its simplest form, I suppose, a startup is an idea that has turned into a business that will hope to quite often generate profit, but not always, have some sort of impact. So it's taking an idea to solve a problem and turning it into a venture. And I think the reason why we have this startup craze right now is because technology and data have all come together to create this really fertile field.
Tem muita tecnologia, mas também tem muita ideia, ou é justamente aí que a gente precisa trabalhar um pouco mais nas pesquisas?
That's a great question. When I was talking to the students, I encouraged them to pay very close attention to their surroundings. And when they find something that realizes a problem, think about that problem and try to pull in all of these resources to solve that problem. And I think that this combination helps to generate all of these new ideas. And so really putting these, the students in the middle of this energy, supporting them with a university, and then giving them the resources they need is a perfect mix for a startup culture.
É porque eu sinto assim, como percepção de um aluno, onde ele quer fazer alguma coisa, mas não sabe o que fazer, ou seja, falta essa ideia. Talvez seja aí um trabalho mais intenso a se fazer junto à academia?
I do. My feeling is that a student in the center of a city like Foz is experiencing an exchange of ideas and cultures where they live, and then they also have the support structure of the university behind them. And so if a student wants to solve a problem or start a venture, instead of living alone and doing it solo and being, in a vacuum, they can reach out and they can talk to people, they can interview people, they can collect data, and when they have all of that and they put it together and they sift through it and they bring other people to help them, an idea will emerge from that. A solution to the problem will emerge. So it's putting a team together and it's getting the data and talking to people. And then that can allow the idea to grow. But if I could add to that a little bit, there are people out there, and they generally tend to be very creative. artists who have lots and lots of ideas, sometimes too many ideas. Find those people, get those ideas, and then figure out which ones are worth keeping. So get good people around you, creative people who think a lot and are always coming up with new ways to do things. Again, not always the best ways, but they generate a lot of ideas. A friend of mine once told me, Sam, you have 1,000 ideas a day. None of them are any good, but you have 1,000 ideas a day.
Eu queria que o senhor comentasse um pouquinho das suas experiências com startups e suas pesquisas nas universidades onde o senhor já trabalhou, na Boston University e na MIT, e agora, mais recentemente, na Harvard.
Okay, sure. So I'll do each one in a section and stop. So I followed my wife to Boston, and I was a school teacher, and I applied to a job at MIT where I was working largely with student artists. And while I was there, I realized that those students who were very creative had a lot to add to entrepreneurship and to business ventures. And so from that, I created a competition at MIT called the Creative Arts Competition. And then I spent a lot of time, about 7 years, running that competition and learning a lot about the startup culture, mostly through the students themselves. And for me at MIT, the tool that worked best to bring people together was the arts. But being a science and tech school, obviously there was a certain bandwidth. You could only get to a certain point with the arts. And so after 12 years, I decided it was time for me to try new things. And so I spent a term teaching cultural entrepreneurship at Boston University, where again I learned a lot from the students that I worked with, the grad students in arts administration there. Then from that, it gave me confidence to follow my own startups and to work on the 3 startups that I have currently going at the moment. One of them is a hardware startup, and it's a simple sensor piece of equipment. And through that process, which isn't really an arts process at all, I learned a lot about creating a business and filing patents and prototyping. And then after that, I joined Harvard, and I'm an entrepreneur in residence there, and I'm working in the education startup space. And that's actually feeding my second startup, which is an arts education consulting venture. And my hope is I'm taking a competition out of Shanghai and I'm bringing it to the East Coast. And then the third startup is actually called Quark, and it's an incubator for teams for business startups as a next level after they graduate out of university to help them continue to grow and build. And my hope is between the work I'm doing at Harvard and the 3 startups I have, I can find some sort of synergy between all of this and really do my very best to add my energy to this new movement of startups and innovation and help students find their own passions and really realize success within this fascinating time. It's a really interesting space to work in. The second startup is a consulting startup around arts education, helping to expand arts education from a company in Shanghai, China, to the East Coast.
Eu queria que o senhor falasse um pouquinho, eu assisti a sua palestra, e o senhor trouxe um exemplo de alunos que realizaram um capacete para cegos. E que o senhor comentasse um pouquinho sobre essa inovação, sobre esse projeto.
One of the more fascinating teams that I worked with that really impressed me was a team between an artist, a composer who didn't have sight, was visually impaired, and a scientist, a technologist at the Media Lab, who is working with electronics and with the haptic experience, so a hands-on experience. They created a helmet that embedded speakers in 360 degrees around your head, so that when you put the helmet on, you could hear a radio drama in space as accurately as you would if you were standing there yourself. And then On top of the helmet, they placed a gyroscope, some sort of gyroscope. It's probably not actually that would spin up energy. And so when you were wearing the helmet and you were listening to a fight scene from a superhero movie, you'll hear the noise or the dialogue coming from the right place, and then the device on top of the helmet would spool up energy, and then as the superhero that you were synced to jumped or leapt to the left, it would break and trick the mind, the blind mind specifically, into thinking it was moving in that direction. So as somebody who is visually impaired, you could experience a story with much more depth, and the sensory perception was much higher, and it's a much richer way for somebody who's visually impaired to enjoy not just movies, but really any form of audio entertainment that includes movement. So you could watch plays, you could see operas, you could watch movies, you could transfer comic books into this sort of space as well. And it was just an idea when they came to us, and they won the competition that we hosted that year, and with it $15,000 US, that then allowed them to actually prototype this device. And so it was really terrific both for them, I think, and for us to be able to see an idea between an artist and a scientist come together, be presented, be nurtured and grown, and then actually created in real life.
Quando projeto desses é realizado, inovador, uma startup, mas quando mexe com pessoas, com uma responsabilidade social, isso satisfaz melhor a gente?
That's a great point, great question, and my answer is 100% yes. One of my greatest takeaways from MIT, from my time as an administrator there, was the student culture was more about solving global problems, big problems that helped raise the global community, as opposed to creating businesses to just generate money. And so, in my opinion, if you're creating a business that doesn't have that component to it, that doesn't offer some resource or opportunity to people who don't have it, then you should rethink your business, because in my opinion, a solid business plan does include social impact, and in fact, it feeds the sustainability of that business. And so it is an absolutely key ingredient, and I wouldn't really try to do anything anymore in my own personal life, any venture that doesn't have that component built right into it.
Que características hoje a gente pode citar como fundamental para se criar um projeto desse, para ser realmente um inovador, um empreendedor? Me permite, eu posso dizer que a ousadia é uma dessas características?
That's a great question. A lot of what I talked about at my lectures here at UDC addressed key ingredients for successful entrepreneurs and business ventures. And yes, boldness, confidence is one of them. And that is not something that necessarily is just inherent. It's something that's practiced. And checking yourself, thinking, okay, wait a second, I really should turn around and try to solve this problem that maybe other people wouldn't, because I feel it's the right thing to do. So stopping, turning around and going to address the problem is the first step. And that just like Professor Fabio said the other day, simply showing up already differentiates you from the others. And so just showing up is the first part, the first step to being confident and bold. Other key ingredients include persistence and hard work, of course, and quite honestly, that's probably most of it. And another one is understanding who you're working with, understanding your problem, and making sure that the solution to your problem is having a conversation with the community it's trying to serve. So your focus in a venture or a project has to also be flexible. It needs to be able to scale and move and pivot depending upon the audience you're working with. So a lot of the ingredients that are really important in entrepreneurship are also key ingredients to really any successful project.
Agora aspecto importante. Eu sou um empreendedor, um inovador, tenho uma boa ideia, mas não tenho dinheiro. como captar esse recurso? Porque algumas situações, com certeza, não deve ser barato. Como captar esse recurso?
That is a terrific question, and this is a point of tension within startups, especially within the sort of creative entrepreneurship areas that I am working in, and it's difficult because it's sort of a chicken and egg scenario. A lot of times, to attract the funding, you need to have proven your concept, but in order to prove your concept, you need to have had the money, and so. Another key ingredient for good entrepreneurs is related to persistence, and it's what I call scrappiness. And so if you can make something out of things that you can find around you and just put them all together and make the best out of those limited resources to prove your point, then you have to do that. Because if you're just going to sit around and wait for people to fund your idea, you're not going to get very far unless your idea is spectacular. So really making the best of what is available to you, so that you can tell your story as poignantly as possible, is very important. And at UDC and in Foz, you have this creative energy that you can just feel walking around the streets. You can feel the heat and the light here. And then at UDC, you have an incredible structure of resource and for professors who are intelligent and experienced and care about their students. And so between those two things, one should be able to at least put together a working prototype of their idea that can get their message across, which would then attract funding.
Para a gente finalizar, uma dica, uma mensagem aos alunos, aos estudantes da UDC, ao telespectador, que queira ser realmente um grande empreendedor, que queira fazer algo diferente com uma startup. Que dicas o senhor deixa?
I have I have three points of advice for students who are interested in creating a startup. The first one is observe your surroundings. Always pay attention to what's around you. And if you end up bumping up against a problem, say you're walking to work and there's something about your commute that's not right, or you're making dinner and there's something about the process that's not quite right, or you're drawing a picture, or you're flying a plane, and if you bump up against something that's not quite right, send that to yourself in an email. Keep a list of these problems that you encounter, because one of these days you're going to stumble across the solution. And when you have a problem and you have a solution, you then have the beginning of your startup. So that's point one, is pay attention to your surroundings. Point two is take notes, write your ideas down. And then point three is, while you're doing all of that, recognize the value in the people that you're working with. Who is strong in what area? Is there strength in marketing? Is there strength in engineering? Is there strength in coding? Is there strength in thinking and creating? And then when you get to the point that you want to really apply the solution to the problem, pull in expertise from around you. There's no such thing as a successful solo entrepreneur, in my opinion. It takes a team to build a business, and it takes a team to solve these problems.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Sam Hunter Magee, pela sua presença. Foi uma honra, foi um prazer muito grande recebê-lo aqui. O senhor é muito simpático, a sua esposa é muito simpática. Enfim, vocês são sensacionais. Muito obrigado de coração pela participação.
Thank you very much. It's been absolutely my pleasure. This has been an experience that I will remember forever, so thank you so much.
E nós voltamos num próximo programa, com certeza com outro referencial, com outro grande nome de algum país. Então, um programa de internacionalização da UDC. Até lá!